Welcome back to That's a Wrap, the channel where I review TV shows, movies, and movie trailers. Today's movie that I will be reviewing is Superman Red Son. But before I get into my review of this animated movie, if you are enjoying the content, please subscribe to the channel and smash that like button. It helps my channel out tremendously. And if you're not familiar with Superman Red Son, consider this your spoiler warning. Now let's get on to the review. As far as animated movies, regardless of what subject matter they are dealing with, I thought this was probably one of the best, if not the best. Normally, I break down reviews to the good, the bad, and the ugly, and honestly, I don't have any bad or any ugly. This movie was well done. The storyline, how they took a concept that has been, now I'm not familiar whether this is based on a comic. I know there's been other comic book strips that handle with what if Superman didn't crash land where he did and crash landed somewhere else. In a review of Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox, it gave us a little bit of that sense of feeling as to what would happen if Clark would have hit a big city or a high populated city like Metropolis in that movie, and what outcomes that would take. So in this movie, our Superman that we have come to love lands in old Soviet Union territory, the old USSR, if you will, during during World War II era, where Stalin does make an appearance in this. And because Superman ends up landing there, he raises, the USSR, the old Soviet Union, to heights unseen that make them the superpower that America ultimately becomes. And that's the parallel that is running, as how Superman, when he landed in USA, and how in the comic book he leads the Allied forces, defeats Hitler, and the rest is comic book history, if you will. So the fact that they adapted that story, again, I'm not sure if they took it from a comic book, but the adaptation or the vision that they had, and how thoroughly they fleshed out this idea, has to be commended. Whether it be from, not just because it's an animated movie, and I don't want to just skip, I'm going to have to keep it in an animated sense, but just in movie general, you don't see a film brought to life and thoroughly explored like this in any form or any genre. So to see it in an animated movie was definitely enjoyable. When I started seeing, Lex Luthor and Lois Lane like a couple, and how they were trying to get the scoop, or she was basically like trying to, because at this point we see Superman, or before we get introduced to Lex Lewis and Lois Lane as a couple, we see how Superman is still the Superman we know, but it's completely on the Soviet Union side. And again, how he elevates, how they're just on ahead of the curve on everything, because they have this metahuman, this superhuman, if you will, just helping them. But I'm not going to get too much into a breakdown, but when we get to see like Lex and Lois Lane be a couple, it threw me back. So it just threw me back. Like, I'm not, I know there's storylines that adapt that kind of a vision, but I thought that, when I saw this and they showed this to me in my face, it like still threw me off. I was like, oh my God, how, what, where? And the voice acting was on point, the animation was on point, the storyline was on point. The whole thing was just such a good production. How we see him kind of embrace, because there's a point in this where Lois Lane and Lex Luthor kind of implant this idea, like saying, hey, when they finally get to when Lois Lane and Superman get introduced, if you will, my mind went like, oh, they're gonna fall in love. It's gonna be like a secret romance developing, and it couldn't have been further from that truth. But they basically implant this head like, hey, your nation isn't so perfect. They're doing their own atrocities, and Superman doesn't believe it until Lois Lane gives him these files. Later on, we know that Lex Luthor planted those ideas, even though they were based on actual things that were happening. But this is something that he wanted to show Superman. And throughout this series, we see Lex Luthor playing chess with himself, but he's really playing it with Superman. And at the end, we know that Lex Luthor played the best hand or the best game of chess and ultimately got what he wanted. So then he goes and finds out that it's true, and then kills Stalin, and which then causes him to basically have I'm gonna rule the world because I know what's right for it. I'm going to set the world free. And unknowingly, he becomes the dictator that we know, kind of parallel to Hitler a little bit. Maybe that's what they were trying to go for. But I love that. And then we see how Lex Luthor is, building his own Superman, and then that Superman looks like the Supermans we know from the comic book, and he's gonna fight the Soviet Superman. And that scene was dope. I enjoyed watching, and that USA Superman was so like America, like gung ho, USA. And I know they were playing fun at that, but I thought it was great to see that Lex Luthor has his brilliance still intact. What we consider Lex Luthor to be. I mean, he's Superman's greatest villain, greatest adversary, if you will. So this cartoon, this animated movie, knew how to grab the Lex Luthor essence and perfectly portray it in animation. The point where we saw some of the Justice League characters, joining in this storytelling. We see Diana basically aligning herself with, Soviet Superman. And my mind was like, what's going on? Like, this is crazy that we're going to see Diana and Superman kind of become a team, and you almost get like they're going to become a couple until Wonder Woman holds holds off Superman's advancements, Soviet Superman's advancements. Because Soviet Superman does beat American Superman, because we find out that Lex is controlling it, and Lex knew that USA Superman was going to lose, but he wants to engage Soviet Superman's power level, his strategies, just kind of how he goes about it. But so ultimately, Superman wins that fight. Soviet Superman wins that fight against USA. Basically a nuclear deterrent of our own, but the USSR Superman is just that much stronger, that much faster, just that much more agile. But anyways, going back to Wonder Woman, Diana, and Superman, Superman thinks that he has to be like the old days where you have to court and eventually have like this marriage and having her, Diana, as his wife. And Diana puts off his advancements and then says like, hey, I come from an island with nothing but women, so I'll let you decide, or let you figure out what I like, meaning that she's a lesbian and she's into women, not men. And then Superman's like, oh great, that's such a relief, because I'm so concentrated on world domination, which I had a chuckle at it. And so basically we see when the incorporation of Brainiac and the twist at the end. Basically, Brainiac is always steps ahead of our superheroes and even some of his partners and villains. And we see that in this animation movie, that he is always just that much more smarter than everyone, has these two moves ahead, hence why he is Brainiac. And it was good to see the twist because throughout this they're working together, him and Soviet Superman, and I'm like waiting for the backstabbing, and I'm like maybe it's not gonna happen, and but sure enough, true to the comic book form, they held with that form. Seeing a different variation of Superman coming off of a refugee, like it's the Superman, it's the I'm sorry, Batman. It's the Batman that we know, but it's in a different continent. It because of where Superman landed. It's not the Bruce Wayne that we know. It's just a different character that developed into the Batman. But it was so good to see how they portrayed this Batman into this story, and he still was so good. You know, the detective mode, the gadgets, and was so far ahead of Superman that he was almost going to take him out if not for the help of Wonder Woman. I love Hal Jordan. You know, he's still American and still the Hal Jordan that we know, but now he's like a super decorated soldier. And they find the ring, you know, like many canon stories do, but they develop like a whole fleet. Like they figure out how to break the technology. Of course, they have Lex. They have one of the most brilliant minds in the DC universe, and they figure out how to give a lot of soldiers the power of the Green Lantern. And they give Superman a little bit of a fight, not too much. But the twist comes when, towards the end of the movie, you know, when the Lantern Corp, I'm gonna call them, does this strike. Superman takes it as a, hey, now we have to, you know, invade USA on Brainiac's directive. He's basically saying, look, there's no other way that we're gonna beat USA. At this point, it's like the 70s, so they've wasted like 30 years, right? Because Brainiac wanted to invade way back in the 50s, but Superman's like, no, I'm gonna show them that the communist way is the correct way, where Brainiac is saying, no, 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 we have to invade, but Superman doesn't until this act, when the Green Lanterns go and attack him, and Brainiac says, see, this is why I'm saying we need to attack, and he goes, you know what, we're right, they're right, we need to attack. And he physically goes in there, and there was a city that Brainiac, before he turned, or before he got on Soviet Superman's side, he had shrunken this city all the way, you know, to minuscule, but the people were still alive, but you know, they could never figure out the technology. And so Superman goes all the way up to the White House. At this point, our Lex Luthor, or this versions of Lex Luthor and Lois Lane, are president and first lady. So Soviet Superman goes right up to the White House and basically calls Lex Luthor out. But we see Lois Lane comes out with this little city that's been shrunken. And Superman's like, how did you get it? And he goes, well, my husband has been, you know, 4 steps ahead of you, or 2 steps ahead of you all this time. And she basically says like, hey, you know, you've had the technology to be able to reverse this, but you haven't. And Soviet Superman's like, no. And then Brainiac destroys this little city, every miniature, any living soul in that little, you know, shrunken city is killed off. And that's where we have the Brainiac saying, yeah, I've been playing you. I've never been under your control. It's all been me, and you've just been a puppet for me to, you know, ultimately take over the world. Then we have Superman and Lex basically teaming up and beating and defeating Brainiac, where there's like this explosion, and it's going to be like, the explosion is going to be so big that if you're 13 million miles, you're going to be in the impact zone. So just let that sink in as to the potential of Brainiac's bomb and what kind of lethality he has, where Superman has to go and take, you know, the bomb that Brainiac created in his vessel and go past 13 million miles. And Lex Luthor finally knows that he won. He outplayed this, you know, Soviet Superman. And then at the end, we know that Lex Luthor is evil, right? And in our reality here as comic book fans, we know that he's always up for complete control. And towards the end, he's talking about the American dream and how power needs to be governed. It can't be dictated. It can't just be one ruler. And now that he accomplished his mission, he wanted to become the most powerful person, or at least rise to presidency of the United States, to combat the threat that was, Soviet Union, Superman. And he steps down. He says, this is, I accomplished my goal. I accomplished to make America the best country in the world, but you guys need to choose, who your president is. It has to be by committee that we're going to be a better country. And he steps down and hands the presidency to his friend, his longtime friend, an African American, that becomes the first president back in the 70s in this instance. And Lois Lane looks at Lex Luthor with such admiration, and that whole relationship is crazy when you see it on screen. And then Lois Lane looks into the crowd and she sees Superman, or Soviet Superman, dressed like Clark Kent. And Clark Kent, or Soviet Clark Kent, understands that, hey, Lex is not a bad guy, that democracy is the way to go. It's not ruling by force, it's ruling, by committee, by having checks and balances, by letting the people decide who they're going to choose and what rules they want to be governed by. And he gives a smirk and he disappears in true Clark Kent fashion. She looks away real quick and looks back and he's gone. Such a great movie. I cannot recommend this movie more. I know it's an animated movie, but from beginning to the end, you will be captivated. The story is so just nicely fleshed out. This, for me, is an A movie, as far as a rating. A. The only little nitpick I would have done, they could have incorporated maybe more Justice League. I know we had Wonder Woman, we had Batman, we had the Green Lantern. It would have been nice. Maybe it was in there, and if it was, let me know down in the comments. But a little bit of Aquaman, a little bit of maybe just other characters that we're familiar with from the Justice League world would have been a little bit nice. But again, such a minor detail and such a minor nitpick for otherwise a movie that, again, not because it's just an animated movie, just a movie in movie standards, one of the best fully thought out movies that I've seen in a while, and was a complete enjoyment to see. But anyways, those are my thoughts and my opinions. I would love to hear your thoughts and your opinion. So let me know down in the comments what you thought about this movie. Did you enjoy it? Do you think it's one of the better animated movie? If not, probably the best animated movie as far as storyline, animation, everything about it. Let me know down in the comments. And like always, that's a wrap.